Welcome back to Fast Monty's Garage. Today we get to show you how to do your own alignment at home using QuickTrick's alignment tool system. I love this stuff. You can use it at home, you can use it at the track, you can measure caster, camber, toe, and it doesn't matter what year your car is because all those measurements are universal. Now what is the difference is the wheel size. So when you go to their website, you just have to select what wheel size you have and you're good to go. So we're going to go through that today. And the reason I know about these guys is this is their Gen 1 product from over 10 years ago. Yeah, so that's pretty much worthless. They hooked us up with our Gen 4 product, so I'm excited to give that a shot. The other cool things they hooked us up with is a steering wheel lock, and most importantly, my favorite to try out, wheel plates. These are swivel plates you actually get to drive onto. They're made of steel, they're ball bearing loaded. That ensures that your suspension's loaded and you'll get a more accurate measurement. Yeah, pretty awesome. Now, towards the end of this video, QuickTrick's also hooking you up with a 10% discount code, which I get to make a little commission off of, which makes a win-win scenario for both of us. So enough of that. Let's get into this bag and see what we got. So here's what comes in the bag. Most importantly, instructions. Make sure you read those like 10 times. There's also a little set of instructions for our digital scales. Each one of these scales is for left and right side measuring. And on the scale, you can go ahead and remove that plastic or protective layer. And on the back side, the battery cover, there's a plastic piece in there as well. So take that out and the scales are good to go. Now, the other things here are toe bars and the vertical bar that we get to use to measure our caster camber, and tape measures for toe. But most importantly, we also have these adapters to attach to the wheel, different sizes and shapes, and we're going to go ahead and do that first. So let's go jump to the front of the car. I'll show you our options. It seems that I misspoke, guys, so I apologize. There is no assortment of pins. There are just 6 pins, 3 for each side. And the way these work, depending on your wheel, for example, look at my wheel, it's chrome finished, there's no lip on it. You actually stick this in here like that, and there's 3 of them per side, and it will hold on the wheel. Play with the different settings. You can even turn upside down, whatever is best for your wheel. Now, if you have a step on your wheel, say it steps down, you can actually use these rubber ends and put it over the end, and then you can apply pressure and it will hold against your wheel. It might even help you to grind this off and you can make it flat, kind of like this end would be. Then you'll have your 3 points, and I'll show you those 3 points in a second. So that's how those work. Let me go ahead and get it set up and show you how I put it on my wheel. On the bottom toe bar, which is the long bar, you're going to have a side that has 2 big holes and 3 smaller holes. So the big holes is actually where you're going to put the 2 that have screws in them. You're going to put them all the way in that hole and tighten it from this side. So I'm going to do both, put it up against the wheel and see where we're at. So here's my trial setup where the instructions want you to actually put this swivel or this movable part at the top, but I can't because my fender's in the way. Yeah, a little ride height issue. So I just reversed it, not a big deal. Your measurements are still going to be the same. But let me show you a close-up here on how the pin fits in with the tire. The pin fits right on the edge, and I have it flush on the front face of the wheel. So all 3 pins need to be the same. Whatever you pick, even if you're off a little bit, or you turn this pin upside down and you go in between the tire and the wheel, as long as all 3 pins have the same, that's what you're after. My worry is this space right here for my fender. Oh man, it's gonna be fun turning the wheel, see what happens. Now that we get to turn the tire, we need to talk about these swivel plates. I love how handy they are because you can just drive onto them, and the QuickTrick system comes with this little gauge that is magnetic, so you can plop it right on there, mark a line where 0 is, and then turn your wheel 20 degrees in and then the full 40 out, and then take your caster measurement. Really simple solution, and these are super robust. They have grip tape on the back so they don't slip. Like that, right off my lift. So it's okay if you don't have the swivel plates. There is a workaround. If you have a perfectly flat garage floor, like the polished concrete on typical new homes, you can jack up your car. Make sure you put plastic bags down, like a hefty 2-layer bag under each tire, because you guys know when you guys have lowered your car down back on the ground, the tires are grabbing because the suspension is trying to move itself out. You need to allow it to do that and load the suspension. You might have to jump on the front bumper a few times to get that suspension back lowered, but that plastic bag also helps you can turn the wheel for this process. The thing that's on you is to figure out where 20 degrees is. So that's not my job because I have a tool for it. So highly recommend this. Now it's drive on, like I said, so the suspension will be fully loaded, and I just need to drop the car, back it up about 12 feet because I want to pull back on the ramp so I'm perfectly straight, my steering wheel's straight, and I'll take a piece of tape and mark the top just in case. But that's our next step. Now, while I'm standing here, the reason we're measuring caster first is that changes all the angles. So caster's first. If you can change caster, it affects your camber. If you can change camber, it affects your toe. And that's why we do it in that order. Now, those of you that don't know, what caster is the alignment of the top and bottom ball joint, or the swivel, the pivot point of your knuckle. If the top joint is further past neutral, it's like towards the driver, that's called positive caster. And if you have a modern car, you probably have positive caster. The true sign is you go around a corner and you let go of the steering wheel while you're accelerating and the steering wheel straightens itself out. You have positive caster because that force is aligning the system. Most older cars, pre-70, maybe even pre-60, have neutral, like a big Cadillac probably has neutral, where you can just kind of spin the wheel with your finger, like no big deal. Or negative, which is not ideal for a high performance car. You want positive caster. So that's my goal. I have 5 degrees positive as my spec. But let me get this car on the ground and show you how to use these plates and get that caster measured. Got my plates in place. I'm ready to go. So here's the center of our disc. You want that in line in the center of your tire. And I elected to use the handle portion to push it up against the tire to make sure it's 90 degrees. And this is on both sides, doing both at the same time. And I'm gonna go ahead and roll up and use my chalk as my stop. Clearly, it helps to have a partner to tell you when to stop, but I'm on my own today. Now, the other thing to note is if the plastic bag trick isn't gonna work for you, or your surface is too rough, you can actually use like 2 pieces of tile, like 1 by 1 foot tile with salt in between them or sand in between them. The first time I did this, I used 2 pieces of really thick cardboard and I put sand in between. It worked. You can even get away with trying not to use it. But anyway, it's super helpful to have something to pivot on. So let me go ahead and crank it up and get on here. Fire in the hole. All right, how'd we do? How'd we do? Oh man, that's like almost perfect. That's middle right there. It looks like the bottom. So, hey, I think we're good to go, team. Next step, we can put our little template on here, like so. And we mark, say, get a dry erase marker and mark 0. I also put painter's tape on where all the pins go. That helps with obviously scratch protection, but it also gives a little bit of more grip for those pins. So I'm gonna go ahead and get our rig set back up. So after you get your rig set up on your wheel, take your scale and put it in front of your tire, because we need to zero it out on the surface that your tire is sitting on. So turn it on, give it a few seconds, and it will read the current angle, which is clearly not 0. To zero it out, hit that Alt 0 button and wait for the beep. With our new zeroed out scale, oh, before I forget, make sure your tire pressure is the same on each side, because if you're drastically off, it'll throw off your readings down the road here. So we'll take our newly zeroed out scale and we want to measure 90 first. And there's 89.5, so just dial it in. And when you get to 90, It tells you with the magic beep. Love it. Now we can take our fastener. You might have a knob version of this. I just happen to have the screw. And we're going to attach it to this bracket, but make sure when you're finally done, this surface is perfectly against this surface. Don't have it cockeyed. You want to make sure it's perfectly flush. Time to measure the caster. And what we're going to do, and ignore this number, however, that is the current camber number, -1/2 degree, which is my spec. So thank God that worked. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and rotate to 20 and then reset the gauge and then rotate to 40. So I'm going to try it without the engine on and see how well these bearing plates work. Oh, super easy. It'll change the angle. I know you guys can't see, but I'm almost there and I'm really shocked. I have power steering and I can totally easily turn the wheels. Pretty impressive. So I'm going to keep going until I get to 20. All right, we're at 20. So now we got to reset our gauge. All right, resetting the gauge. Here's the magic beep. Now I'm going to turn all the way to the other 20, so 40 degrees, and we'll see what happens. Okay, we're there. I don't know if you can see the number here, but it says -6. And it's actually the opposite. So it's, even though it says negative, it's 6 degrees positive. But the problem is you still have to multiply that number by 1.5, which means we're adding 50%. So I'm at 9 degrees positive caster. That's too much. So I have to change that, but we're going to do that at a different episode. But that's how you measure caster. Let's go move on to camber. Before we get to camber, you guys might be having an issue with your steering wheel wanting to bounce back because you're getting close to that 20 degree mark. Well, that's where this tool comes in handy. Check it out. So once you get to the magic point, just hold up the fingers on the steering wheel and push down on the seat. Bam, it locks. Now clearly I added some rubber hoses on here because the metal bars on wood isn't going to work. So if you have a padded steering wheel, it'll work fine, but you never know, maybe QuickTrick will add that option for a wood steering wheel. Pretty cool. Now, to let it go, hold the steering wheel. There's a trigger on the back. Bam, it's loose. That same lock could probably be used when we do our toe adjustment. If you want to keep your steering wheel from moving while you're adjusting your tie rod ends, that could come in handy too. Let's get back to camber. All right, so we got that scary number for caster. I'll fix that in a later episode. For those of you with GM A bodies, we'll do that separately. So the rest of you don't care. So once you fix your caster, you measure camber. And camber, you saw me already do this already. You zero out the gauge like we did in front of the tire, and then we attach it to the vertical, and that will tell you your camber right off the bat. Now, a little hint here that I noticed is I would loosen the bracket on the vertical, attach the gauge. So once you tighten the gauge screw down, now tighten the vertical, and that should snug it up, and then you'll get your camber reading. Yeah, camber's easy. So if you have to fix your camber, do your camber. Again, I'll do that in another episode for you A-body guys. But now we get to talk about toe. And while we're sitting here, I need to show you something, how impressive these swivel plates are. Watch this. I can move the whole steering rack basically by sitting here. Yeah, try that with your car. Okay, for measuring toe, put each assembly on both wheels. It doesn't matter if this is vertical or not. The important thing is we want this bar to be square with the wheel so we get an accurate measurement on both sides. So jump to the others, run your tape measure under the car, all the way to the other side, and this is how you put them on. So once those are on, you can snug them up both at the same time. I'm trying to do it both at the same time because I don't want them to fall off the other side. So you slip them in this slot, you can lock the tape in place. And this is not an optical illusion. This bar is a little bit lower for me because my headers are really low. And now that you have your tape set up, double check that you're seated against the face of your wheel, that your bar is as straight as possible, and parallel with your wheel. Make sure your tape, there's no lag in your tape, like I'm not hitting my headers. And take your measurements. You take a measurement on the rear tape and the front tape and you compare the difference. Now, the difference should be, the front tape should be narrower than the rear tape. That's called toe in. So if you're standing up looking at your toes, toe in, toe out. Most specs are total toe for the front is 3/16 of an inch. That's actually my desired setting. But I have a problem. I have over 1 inch difference. Yeah, so next episode we're going to cover how to fix all that. But today's episode was about how to use the tool to get your measurements. And I haven't forgotten. Your 10% discount code, QTMonty, right there. So go hit up QuickTrick's website. I'll also leave a link for the kit that I have. But there's several different options you can get and different wheel sizes. So put your discount code in there and you'll be set to go. Now, next episode, those of you guys that have a classic car or any cars that use shims to change your caster and camber, that's what I'll be doing. And the episode after that's even more important. It's called string aligning. So when you have a drastic toe measurement like this, it's best to get it string aligned, which is the same thing as laser aligning, but without a $5,000 laser and rig in your garage. So that's what I'll be doing. Thanks for hanging out. Subscribe if you haven't. Click that bell to get notified of the next release, and we'll take it from there. You guys know the drill. Building fast, driving faster. See ya.